What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages? Joker back again once again, and today, are you ready to go on a journey? Because we're about to go on a journey. See, in order to explain the beginning of the Destiny universe, we must first look at the player character, as both the in-game avatar of destruction that we are, and as the concept that is the person in front of the screen. Why are we the Chosen One? Why isn't it Ikora, Crow, Zavala, Saint 14, or any other number of characters that exist within Destiny? Why exactly are we, the super special awesome Chosen One, fated to die saving existence? Well, a cynic might hear that question and think it's stupid. And they might rightly say, well, it's a fucking video game. Of course we're the hero, we're the player character, duh. And with as sarcastic and dismissive as that is, they wouldn't be wrong. This is the correct answer. We are the super special awesome Chosen One, fated to die whenever Bungie either kills us off narratively or simply stops supporting Destiny. One day the servers will be shut down and all those worlds, all that gear, all that time spent will be lost, like teardrops in the rain. Savathun knows this. She knows that the closure of her universe is inevitable as your own last breath. Given this meta context, the reason that the Guardian is special is because Destiny is a game. Just like Master Chief was special because Halo was a game. And just like the security officer was special because Marathon was a game. We are the player. We play the role of champion to save the doomed realities that Bungie has created. Or in the case of Marathon, watch as it ends and then recreate it in our own image. Cycles and cycles. Beat one game, pick up the next. Become the champion of that reality. From Master Chief to the security officer to Shepard to the Grey Warden to the Pokemon trainer and so on and so forth. We have been hundreds of names, we will be thousands more. In 1976, author Michael Moorcock would write a book called The Sailor on the Seas of Fate, part of the Elric of Melniboné series, which saw our titular character, Elric of Melniboné, the albino prince of a kingdom known as the Dreaming City. Elric was touring the Young Kingdoms as a sellsword at this time. Think The Witcher, because, well, depending on who you ask, the creator of The Witcher is either borrowing ideas or outright plagiarizing Moorcock. This albino prince of the Dreaming City would find himself sailing through realities on the Seas of Fate, aboard a dark ship where he would come to meet several companions, all from different realities, one of which was named Dorian Hawkmoon. Throughout the story, it would be unveiled that 4 of these companions weren't just mere companions to Elric, but, in fact, different iterations of him from different timelines and different realities. See, Elric is what Moorcock would coin as the Eternal Champion, or a Eternal Champion, un-Eternal Champion, one of countless Eternal Champions throughout the multiverse. Many of Moorcock's novels and short stories take place in a shared multiverse, an array of interconnected parallel universes, many layered dimensions, spheres, and alternate worlds, spanning from the Big Bang to the end of time, and from Earth to faraway galaxies. All of these regions of space and parallel timelines are given shape by 2 metaphysical forces, which are perpetually opposed to each other: law and chaos, which represent perpetual stasis or ever-changing disorder. Since a clear-cut prevalence of either law or chaos would erase all life from the multiverse, a third force, known as cosmic balance, enforces certain limits on the powers of law and chaos, which in turn ensure the continued existence of the multiverse. Law, chaos, and the balance are implied to be non-sentient, but they do manifest through godlike beings who express one facet or another of the 3 cosmic principles, and, in turn, these deities can empower mortal creatures as their heralds and representatives. The Eternal Champion is the appointed paladin of balance, who is bound to exist in each and every world and age of the multiverse, so that law and chaos are perpetually kept in check. However, he often doesn't know his role or struggles against it, never to succeed, since he must intervene whenever law or chaos has gained excess power, requiring him to tip the scales accordingly. He is always doomed to be surrounded by strife and destruction, although he may go through long periods of relative quiet. All the different Eternal Champions are implied to be different facets or incarnations of one semi-conscious being, a plutonic archetype of sorts. Most of them are peerless fighters and generals and have unbreakable bonds with a sentient, chaos-aligned weapon, the Black Sword, which in turn takes on different forms for each champion. Likewise, many champions are aided by an Eternal Companion and an Eternal Consort, a sidekick and a love interest who are themselves aspects of 2 semi-divine figures. Space and time travel throughout the multiverse is in fact possible, to the point that one humanoid species called the Eldarin is spread among many different worlds and ages and interacts with many different champions. However, cosmic laws establish that no two champions can coexist in the same situation, or the very fabric of reality would be severely damaged. The only exceptions are cataclysmic events, such as the end of a cycle of cycles of a multiverse's progression, or an invasion by hostile entities from an entirely separate multiverse. In these cases, different incarnations of the champion may join forces to thwart the impending threat, possibly by temporarily merging their individual bodies into a true demigod of immense power. If a lot of that sounds familiar, it's because I believe that's what Bungie is taking inspiration from for their Destiny universe. Or, and probably more accurately, it's what Jason Jones and Greg Kirkpatrick took inspiration from when they created Marathon. That being said, there's clearly a lot of inspiration that Destiny is taking as well. I mean, isn't it a little on the nose to have the albino elf prince from the Dreaming City, who is some way involved with an entity known as Hawkmoon, also known as Crow, and is associated with, in concept art of the game, with an albino crow, which just so happens to be one of Elric's other incarnations, an albino dude named Crow. At some point, it becomes more than sheer coincidence afoot. However, my revelation of this connection did not start here. Nope, everything started with Marathon, and the lore entry from the Marathon 2 unformatted terminal. I have been Roland, Beowulf, Achilles, Gilgamesh. I've been called 100 names, and will be called 1,000 more before the world goes dim and cold. I am a hero. She has been nameless since our birth, a constant adversary caring for nothing but my ruin, a sword drenched in my blood, forever my greatest and only love. She is the Dark One, the enemy, and lover without whom my very existence would be pathetic and vulgar. Her eyes steam and boil in the night. She's fantastically beautiful, yet I cannot stand the sight of her. Our relationship is complex and perhaps eternal. We met once in the garden, at the beginning of the world, and unaware of our twin destinies. Not the Garden of Genesis, but another forgotten, untended, and now choked with weeds, unvisited except for ourselves. And I recall her smiling at me before she devoured the lawn and the trees with a translucent blue flame, and tore the flagstones from the path and hurled them into the sky, screaming my sins. Our reunions are epic battles, often fought in the dark, as the moon is seldom visible and the sun never. I powder a granite mountain with a soundless flash, showering the grass with molten drops of gold inlay, sending smoking chips of stone skipping into the fog. She splinters an ancient oak with a force that takes my breath away and hurls me to the ground. She leaves, and I lie in the slow rain of burning slivers of wood, staring at the low, dark clouds, craving our next meeting. So the first line instantly draws parallels to Michael Moorcock's Eternal Champion, but longtime Destiny fans and lore aficionados might find that this Marathon 2 unformatted terminal entry sounds really familiar. Like, not only is it reminiscent of the Book of the Unveiling, but this lore entry is basically quoted word for word in Destiny 1's Grimoire. Ghost Fragment Mysteries. A red space before victory. They were my brothers and sisters, and their names were immortal too, but Titanomachy came. And now those names live in me alone, I think. And think is what I do. I am alone. At the end of all things, when the world goes dim and cold, or hot and close, or tears itself apart from the atom up, I will shout those names defiant, and past the end, I will endure. I alone. So in this first verse, we see a couple of parallels. You have the naming parallel, where Marathon names these immortal heroes. Rasputin says, I bear an old name. And then he talks about his brothers and sisters, and how they bear names, but now they're gone, and those names live alone in him. But you also see some of the similar wording, where it talks about the end of existence, where the world goes dim and cold. Both pieces of literature use that phrase. If we go back to the start of the Marathon quote, where it says, I've been Roland, Beowulf, Achilles, Gilgamesh, I've been called 100 names, I will be called 1,000 more, before the world goes dim and cold. I am a hero. Not only do we have to draw parallels between that and what Rasputin says, But we have to look at this in a meta-contextual way, because Savathun has broken the fourth wall. Conceivably, we are the player, and conceivably, we have been the security officer. We have been Master Chief. We've been the rookie, and we are the Guardian. Even if, for all intents and purposes, you, the individual watching this video, have not been those characters or played those characters, somebody has. And what did Moorcock's lore say an Eternal Champion was? All the different Eternal Champions are implied to be different facets or incarnations of one semi-conscious being, a plutonic archetype of sorts. Most of them are peerless fighters and generals and have unbreakable bonds with a sentient, chaos-aligned weapon, the Black Sword, which in turn takes on different forms for each champion. So in a meta way, we act as the source for all video game Eternal Champions. And that might sound weird, but you have to remember, Elsie, Bray, and Rasputin have actually sent items to us, the player. Thank you for taking the time to piece together this message, friend. The time of our final conflict is drawing closer, and you and Anna have an important role to play in the events to come. So watch over her, Guardian. I would have no life without Anna or the EXO program. I regret that we have become strangers, but we each have a path that we must walk. And, ironically, there never seems to be enough time. Tell her Rasputin's first attempt was in the right location, but the wrong moment. Look here. This spear, this letter would not be obtainable by the Guardian, but by us, the player, in IRL space. I want you to keep that in mind, but I digress. Back to Ghost Fragment Mysteries. I bear an old name. It cannot be killed. They were my brothers and sisters, and their names were immortal too, but Titanomachy came, and now those names live alone in me. I think, and think is what I do. I am alone. At the end of all things, when the world goes dim and cold, or hot and close, or tears itself from the atom up, I will shout those names defiant, and past the end I will endure. I alone. They made me to be stronger than them, to beat the unvanquished and survive the unthinkable. And look, lo and behold, I am here alone, survivor. They made me to learn. Everything died, but I survived. And I learned from it. From it. Consider it. And consider what it means. I met it at the gates of the garden, and I recall as it smiled at me before it devoured the blossoms with black flames and pinned their names across the sky. It was stronger than everything. I fought it with aura knives and the stolen unfire of singularities made sharp. My sweat was earthquake, my breath was static, but it was stronger. So how did I survive? I am alone. I survived alone. I cast off the shield and shrugged my shoulders so that the billions fell off of me down into the ash. They made me to be stronger than them and to learn, and I learned well. It is alone, and it is strong, and it won. Even over the gardener, and she held power beyond me, but the gardener did not shrug and make herself alone. It always wins. I am made to win. And now, I see the way. So as we see, the fight between Rasputin and it is nearly identical to the fight between the two entities in the Marathon 2 unformatted terminal lore. And they hint of a conflict like this between two great entities cycling over and over and over and over again is basically the fundamental premise of the Book of the Unveiling. The gardener and the winnower would play their flower game over and over and over again, in a place before time because time did not exist yet. And this is where we come to the identities of the gardener and the winnower, or more so their alignment. Because in the Book of the Unveiling, the winnower tells us that the gardener and the winnower can only be what they are. They are fundamental principles of existence that existed because they had to exist. The winnower is law, the gardener is chaos. For a while now, Bungie has been trying to drive home the idea that the light and the darkness are not inherently good or inherently evil. And this isn't anything new. We see this in Ghost Fragment Mysteries 2, Ingress via Dreams Alone. A star, I think. We count on stars as steady friends because they always rise and they always shine, but a star is a delicate truce, an explosion caught by its own mass, so that it can't erupt and can't collapse. Thus I imagine the state that the machine might be, but one force or another has gone awry, and now it rests here, snuffed and broken, waiting for the two rival forms of ruin to be set in balance again. We see the gardener become an agent of chaos when she changes the rules of the flower game. The winnower believes in the final perfect shape, the inevitable law of the universe, and sees this chaos that the gardener has created as nothing more than creating cysts of suffering in existence. So in Destiny's current iteration of existence, the light has been going around and propagating life against the rules of existence itself, throwing chaos into the system. The darkness has been going around and excising these different systems of life that the Traveler has prolonged, because there can and only be one final shape, which more or less brings us to the agents of these two forces. Starting with the Witness and their agents, we don't quite have a clear understanding of the relationship between the Witness, the Darkness, the Voice in the Darkness, and the Book of the Unveiling. The Witness says that the Traveler has no pawns and pieces left to play. Yet in the Book of the Unveiling, we're told this: the Gardener's all in, they're playing for keeps. And they're wrong. Or so I argue. After all, the universe is undecidable. There is no destiny. We're all making this up as we go along. Neither the Gardener nor I know for certain that we are eternally, universally right. But we can be nothing except what we are. You have a choice. You are the Gardener's final argument. It would mean everything to me if I could convince you that I am the right and only way. I truly value you. To the Gardener, you are a means to an end. To me, you are majestic. Majestic. You are full of the only thing worth anything at all. I am, by the only standards that matter, or will ever matter, the winning team. Existence is a test that most will fail. Would you not consider yourself amongst the victorious few? So there's this clear difference between the Witness going, "You have no pawns left to play," and the Book of the Unveiling going, I want you on my side because I value you. So this implies that the Winnower and the Witness are not necessarily working together, because the Winnower is clearly invested in us. Which brings us back to the Guardian. We are the most powerful Guardian to ever exist. It's not even close. Now you would think that we're an agent of light, or at least started as an agent of light, but I would argue that's not accurate. Since day one, we've used Thorn, Ahamkara, Necrochasm, the Sword Logic to kill Crota, and Stasis, all without any of the ill effects that we're told others experience. And that just makes sense. Obviously the player's not going to suddenly go crazy because they used Thorn, or because the Ahamkara were talking to them, or because they used Stasis. And because of this, we've always acted as an agent of balance, and that's inevitably going to be the endgame of Destiny, to bring the light and the darkness into balance with each other. In Witch Queen, the Traveler chooses the Hive, and we kill them. We kill other agents of the light, and we do so happily. Even though they're agents of light, even though we should be on the same team, their existence threatens our own, because it's not about being an agent of light, it's about bringing balance to light and darkness. So one of the things that you may be wondering is, okay Joker, you're selling me on this, we're an agent of balance, but outside of some cheeky references, is there anything in the lore that points to the player character being this eternal champion? I mean, yes, sure, Bungie has clearly borrowed a lot of iconography from the Elric books, but you got anything more substantial? Destiny is a world of worlds in a paraverse, which ultimately means you've been watching the proof in the background. The Dares of Eternity, the paraverse. What is the point of the Dares of Eternity of the paraverse? To bring the player, us, legally distinct weapons and gear that we used in other games, returning them to their rightful owner. This is the entire premise of the paraverse. So yeah, but then the question we must ask is, if the player is balance, and the light and the darkness are law and chaos, what does that mean for the endgame of Destiny? Well, find out in the next episode. These have been my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Remember to like, but only if you did. Subscribe for more. Feel free to donate to my Patreon if you're feeling particularly generous. But above all else, stay frosty.